Imagine this. You arrive at work, coffee in hand, ready to seize the day. You open your laptop and everything, and I mean everything, has gone. Every spreadsheet, every customer record, every project, every email flashes with the same message. Your files have been encrypted, access denied. Your heart drops. Your systems are down. Your entire business is frozen. Now, let me ask you another question. The only question that really matters in that moment. Where are your backups? See, this is why ISO 27001 introduced this Control Annex A 8.13 information backup. It's your last line of defense when everything else fails. It's there to ensure you can recover from loss of data or systems. This control requires that you have put in place some form of information backup. So what does the standard require? Well, it states that backup copies of information, software, and systems shall be maintained and regularly tested in accordance with the agreed topic-specific policy on backup. Now, there's an important point here. In this particular control, if you notice, it's talking about three things. It's talking about information, it's talking about software, it's talking about systems. All three are important because each one keeps your organization running. But also notice this as well, and this is one of these points that regularly gets missed, that yes, this is about backing up your data, but it's also about testing it as well regularly. Having backups is one thing, but knowing you can rely upon them is quite another. So as ever, let's try and bring this to life with a couple of examples. How about the company that we supported when they contacted us after they'd been hit with ransomware? Servers were locked. Obviously, all the files were encrypted, and the ransomers were demanding a relatively small amount of money, but still a significant one for this small firm. It basically meant that their organization was now frozen. It couldn't do anything. So they reached out to us and said, what can we do? What should we be doing? Now, of course, we gave them lots of advice and guidance and such, but the first question we asked was, where are your backups? And unfortunately, they had been backing up their data, but they hadn't been backing up their main systems. So ultimately, yes, they got everything back up, but it took a much longer because they hadn't been thinking about the systems and the software as well. So when they thought, well, we can recover our data within just a few hours, and their IT provider had said, look, we're backing up your data, what actually they thought was going to only take them a few hours actually took them several weeks to get back up and running. And of course, then we have lots of other things that we needed to do. But that's the very nature of business continuity, which is a whole other control. But fundamentally, the first question we're always going to ask is, where are your backups and what is backed up? So think about that. But it's not just hackers we have to worry about and backups become useful. One organization had a burst pipe in their office ceiling, in actual fact, and it destroyed on-premise servers and systems. They didn't actually have any offline copies. They didn't have any backups. So all the systems that they thought they were backing up were being backed up to servers and machines in the same office, in the same room as their primary system. Now, had the risk assessment been done fully, correctly, then you're putting all your eggs quite literally in one basket. So when this flood occurred, everything was gone. No offline backups, no separation of geography in a different place. So it meant that they had literally lost everything, and they had to attempt to bring everything back up by literally reaching out to suppliers and to customers, asking them to resend emails or resubmit orders, etc. That took them months to be able to recover, all because they hadn't really thought through their backup procedures. And that's really what the auditor is going to be looking for in this control. They're going to be looking for a really well thought out strategy towards backups. Some of the other things they're going to be looking for, of course, they're going to be looking for things like data classification schemes. This means that you've identified what is important to you, what is publicly available, highly critical, sensitive, top secret, whatever schema you're going to use. But they're going to want to see that you've thought this through, and that's going to be really key to you as well. And we'll come on to what you need to be doing shortly. But they're also going to be wanting to see that you've thought about what your backup strategy is. Cloud backup considerations. Just remember that everything in the cloud just doesn't mean that it's backed up. It just simply means that it's highly resilient. So you need to think about what your cloud backup security is as well. They're going to want to see that you have an inventory of assets, an inventory of informational assets. Again, if you've thought about what your data classification scheme is, then you need to have thought about what kind of information you actually access. If you have a ROPA, a records of processing activities in place, then that's a great tool to be able to use to be able to demonstrate that you've thought about or have a good understanding of all the key information that is important to you. And once you've identified it, you know which bits of data, what kind of data you need to be backing up and how. Now, in this particular control, it does talk about a topic-specific policy. So you need a topic-specific policy around backups. So this is a mandatory requirement. Now, as ever, backup policies or policies in general don't have to be complicated and convoluted. Just one or two paragraphs talking about your approach to backups is enough, because following on from that, you need to have some form of backup procedures, processes, guidelines, which talk in more detail about how often backups are performed, what information is backed up. These backup tools that you're going to use as well, there are backup software solutions and such like that you will be thinking about at a tactical level. And again, as ever, we're not going to talk about any specific technology because time moves on and I have no idea when you're going to be watching this video. But go and research what is appropriate to you, what is state of the art at this point in time for backing up the data. What's appropriate to you? Could be just as simple as backing up your data onto a external encrypted hard drive, for instance. That might be just perfectly acceptable if you're a small firm, small organization, and you've considered the risks, then that's fine. Come on to more of that in a second. But in terms of what the auditor is going to be looking for, again, is that you've thought this through. And if you've identified any risks, that you've identified them and put them on your risk register and that you've treated them appropriately. Now, other things that the auditor might be looking for is things like a business impact analysis. Now, a BIA, as it's often referred to, just simply talks about the loss of systems or data and the impact upon your organization and what the recovery time objective and the recovery point objectives are. This is the first time we really start talking about these things like RTOs, recovery time objectives, and RPOs, recovery point objectives. Far too many acronyms, but you get the picture. It's all about understanding what is the impact upon you and your organization should you lose systems or you lose the data. And very importantly, how quickly can you recover that data? What is acceptable? Maybe you say, well, if we lost the email system, for instance, we can live without email for 12 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, a week. It's up to you. It's your organization, but you should have an understanding of the business impact and how quickly you want to have that data back up and running. And also at what point. So the recovery point objective. So this might be where you say, well, we need the data back up and running within 12 hours. But if backups are only conducted every week, then let's say they're backed up on a Sunday evening and you have a disaster the following Friday, then you've lost 5 days of work. You've lost 5 days of emails. Is that acceptable? Only you can determine that. So your recovery time objective, your recovery point objective are all parts of your business impact analysis. Now, they are not mandatory within ISO 27001. They're all dealt with a different standard called ISO 22301, which is all around business continuity management, a whole other standard. But certainly what the auditor is going to be looking for is that you've thought these things through. And importantly for you as well, you need that clarity. You need to know how quickly can you get systems back up and running. It's all well and good having data backed up, but if it takes a week or 2 weeks or a month to get that data back, then is that really any good? Again, only you can decide that. So what do you need to do? Well, again, ISO 27002, the guidance on information security is a useful tool to help guide us a little here. What we would suggest is that you do, again, go and take a look at that particular guidance. Just remember it's guidance, it's not mandatory. It talks about what you should do, not what you shall do. Go and take a look at it. But here's the things that we would suggest. You need to identify what actually needs to be backed up. Again, using your data classification scheme and your records of processing activities, identify critical data, essential software, key systems, business records, anything you cannot afford to lose. Now, your BIA will help you define that and understand what is the impact. And again, this is understanding what is the impact if you lost your CRM, your customer or client relationship management software. What's the impact? Is it big? Is it high? Is it medium? Is it low? What about if you lost it for a day or a week or a month? Would that be bad? What is the impact upon you? And how quickly do you need it back up and running? Again, it's identifying what you actually need, and then you can determine what needs to be backed up. If you've got a massive archive database of old clients and customer records and such, does that need to be, is that high, medium, low? Maybe that's lower because you're really more concerned about your live data, your live clients and your products and services and such. You then need to implement a robust business backup strategy. And that backup strategy is determining what your backup schedule should look like. Are you running backups on an evening, once a week, once a month? What about archiving? You need to protect any backups from loss, theft, or tampering as well. So when you're thinking about what your backup strategy is, you need to think about whatever solution you use is also protected. If it's on those external hard drives that I mentioned earlier, are they encrypted? If you were to lose one of those external hard drives or thumb drives, could someone just plug it into their machine and suddenly have access to all to your banking system, your client files? You need to think about security for your backup solution. Make sure you apply strong access controls as well. Just think about who can access the backup systems. This is just, again, back to role-based access control list, thinking about the systems that can have access to it, the people who can have access to your backups as well, and ensure that you have protection of physical storage devices as well. Again, remembering that example that I gave earlier, thinking about the strategy around backups, how are the backups physically being stored? If they're stored in the same place as your primary systems, then they're subject to the same physical forces and issues that your primary system is. If your building burns down, then both sets, your primary system and your backup system, have now gone. If you have a flood, same message. If someone breaks in and steals all the machines or smashes them to pieces, same story applies. So think about physical protection as well. And on this premise here about thinking strategically around backups, what you really need to be thinking about is 3, 2, 1. That is 3 different backups on 2 separate mediums, with one of them being held remotely or off-site. So keeping offline or off-site and immutable copies where necessary, because if again, from a let's say, for instance, for a law firm, you need to make sure that your backups are free from tampering as well. So just keep that in mind, that 3 copies, 2 medium types, 1 offline copy. Just keep that in mind, 3, 2, 1. But also, I'm going to refer back to something I said earlier about cloud storage. Cloud storage can be used as the offsite copy, but just remember that cloud alone is not a backup strategy. Cloud can suffer outages, corruption, encryption by external adversaries, or deletion. You need redundancy beyond your primary environment. So cloud is great. Yes, it offers a high level of redundancy and resilience, but for true backups, you need to talk to your cloud provider and ask them about a cloud backup solution. Again, only you can determine the level of risk and sensitivity around the data that you have. Perhaps you have 2 cloud environments. Maybe you back up your systems from Microsoft Azure across to AWS or vice versa. That's a cool kind of strategy, a cloud strategy, because if AWS goes down, then you can always go to your Microsoft cloud environment. And before anyone says, well, that's unlikely to happen, it happens. It has happened. And it is most likely going to happen again. Only you can decide whether having all your information on the same cloud is appropriate or not. And remember also that this is more about backing up more than just your data as well. Remember that this requires information, that's documents, emails, spreadsheets, and databases, software, so that's applications, configurations, licenses, and systems, that's entire servers, virtual machines, infrastructure, the SaaS configuration, exports, that kind of thing. Just remember that when disaster hits, data alone won't save you. Data is absolutely critical, and the sensitive data, the personal identifiable information, absolutely key, and is usually the target by cyber criminals and such. But if your systems are down as well, if everything is encrypted, if you lost a primary system because of a corrupted database or a corrupted system or fire, flood, physical attack, whatever it might be, then you need to know how long is it going to take you to be able to recover all of the systems before you put on your data, or you start recovering your data as well. Now, I mentioned this earlier, what you need to be thinking about today, and you can take this action away even if you haven't got your backup strategy fully thought through yet, is ask a simple question. When did we last test the recovery of our backups? Backup success does not equal recovery success. Just keep that in mind. So you must test restoring individual files, maybe even entire systems. Try recovering applications, databases, cloud environments, on-prem servers and systems. And then document the test date, what was restored, how long did it take you to recover, what the results were, and very importantly, what the lessons learned were as well. Because if you can't restore it, what's the point in backing it up in the first place? And finally, I would just simply say to you, you need to do this. You need to define your backup responsibilities and document them. Now, yes, you need a topic-specific backup policy, but you need to have the procedures and guidelines which determine who performs the backups, how often, where the backups are going to reside, how long you're going to keep them, how recovery tests are conducted, how results are reported. But also you need to think about GDPR and data protection as well, because remember that if someone makes a subject access request and requests the removal and deletion of data, then that also means deletion of backups as well. Or at the very least, you need to have a mechanism that says, if we recover this data, and let's say, for instance, last month we deleted 5,000 records off our database because they're no longer necessary, and under GDPR, we need to remove them. If you then restore all of that data in 6 months' time, you've got to remember to go back and delete the 5,000 records. So you need a procedure around that, or at the very least, clear responsibilities to determine who does that. So just very briefly, some practical guidance on what you must do now. Go and review your data classification, identify what needs to be backed up, go and conduct a BIA, choose a strategy, implement strong protection, write a backup policy, test your recovery, and ensure you're backing up information, software, systems, and data. Because let me just finally say this here. Backups are your seatbelt. They're your airbag. They're your final safety net. Cyber attacks happen, yes, disasters happen, human error happens, but businesses don't fail because bad things happen. They fail because they weren't prepared. This control isn't just a requirement, it's your business continuity lifeline. So get your backups right, test them, protect all of the information systems and data that you have access to, and trust that when the worst things happen, you can rise again. I hope that's been helpful. As ever, I am Gary from Consultants Like Us, where we provide compliance without complexity. I would really be interested in your thoughts around this. Have you ever been in a crisis and a disaster where a backup has failed, or maybe has saved your bacon? Whatever your approach to backups, I hope you do it strategically, tactically, and operationally. But thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe by hitting the bell so you'll be updated on future videos. I'd love to hear your comments. And until next time, stay well, stay safe, and stay connected. Thank you. Bye-bye.